Five Nights at Freddy's has been hiding characters in plain sight since 2014. Two of them still have zero confirmed origin, zero confirmed purpose, and zero confirmed identity, despite showing up in nearly every single game in the franchise. They look like glitches, they behave like glitches, but they're not. So let's talk about the two oldest unsolved mysteries in FNAF, starting with a pair of shadows that might not even be ghosts. Back in FNAF 2, players started reporting something weird. A dark purplish black Freddy slumped in the parts/service room. A fully black silhouette shaped like Toy Bonnie appearing in the office and then crashing the entire game. Most people assumed these were bugs. Turns out, no, they were intentional. And nearly a decade later, nobody can definitively explain what they are. Here's where it gets complicated. The Fazbear Fright story, Hide and Seek, frames Shadow Bonnie not as a dead child's ghost, but as an agony being, a creature formed from intense emotional suffering that gains a body. That's a fundamentally different category of entity than anything else in the franchise. We're not talking about a kid stuffed in a suit. We're talking about pain itself, wearing a shape. Shadow Freddy's origin gets debated between the missing children's incident and the bite of 83, but UCN analysis narrows it down. Whatever created Shadow Freddy had to be an atrocity committed directly by William Afton. The bite of 83 was caused by the older brother, so the MCI wins by elimination. Without a resolution, the shadows leave a massive open question. Is a haunting always a person? Can it be collective trauma with no individual soul behind it? Nobody knows. And that uncertainty infects every mystery that comes after. But if you think two nameless shadow entities are confusing, wait until you hear about the minigame that was supposed to give the original trilogy a happy ending and somehow made everything worse. Happiest Day. FNAF 3 gave us one of the most emotionally satisfying images in the entire franchise, and nobody can agree on whether it actually happened. Here's the setup. You double-click a drawing of the puppet on the hall camera, and suddenly you're controlling a small, white-faced child, almost certainly Charlotte Emily walking past a row of kids in animatronic masks. At the end of the hall sits a single child wearing a black bear mask, alone at a birthday table. You deliver a cake, the child smiles, and then everyone in the room fades away. Gone. FNAF 3's good ending triggers. The children are free, beautiful, clean. Done, except we still don't know who that kid at the table is. The default reading says it's the Golden Freddy child, the one whose suffering kept all the other MCI spirits bound. The puppet gathers everyone together, delivers closure, and the whole group moves on. But a revisionist theory argues that kid is actually the crying child from FNAF 4, and that Black Bear mask isn't Freddy, it's Fredbear. This is the birthday he never got to have. And here's where it gets uncomfortable. FNAF World and Ultimate Custom Night both imply that at least one vengeful spirit is still active after the good ending. Someone got left behind, which means Happiest Day might have only freed some of the souls, not all of them. So was Henry's plan in Pizzeria Simulator building on Happiest Day's success, or trying to fix its failure? We genuinely don't know. And that uncertainty turns a moment of pure catharsis into something deeply uneasy. But if you think one unresolved ending is frustrating, wait until you hear about the object Scott literally refused to ever open, the box. After you beat FNAF 4's nightmare sequence, the game shows you a locked chest, silver and gold, two padlocks, completely unopenable, and underneath it, one line of text. Some things are best left forgotten for now, that for now kept the community going for years. Everyone assumed a future game would crack it open and hand us the answer to everything. And then, in 2023, Scott sat down with Dako and essentially said no. The box was never an answer. It was a symbolic question. He couldn't find a satisfying way to fold its contents into later games, and it will never be opened, which is, you know, not ideal. But here's the thing, the community heard permanently sealed decorative chest and said absolutely not. The trophy box theory argues the chest contains personal belongings William stole from his victims, trophies connected to remnant experiments aimed at resurrecting the crying child. Supporters point to the FNAF 4 house decor, the scattered toys and knickknacks, and Toy Chica's backpack collecting items from dead classmates as visual foreshadowing. A second theory proposes the box literally contains the bite victim's body, remnant infused and preserved, tying it to William's later work with Circus Baby and Ennard. Then there's the meta theory. The box contains the solution to the lore itself, and Scott's message was an editorial comment, revealing the answer would kill theorizing and lock him into a path he didn't want. So he chose ambiguity. A permanently locked image file has generated more theory content than most actual game mechanics in this franchise. I don't know what to tell you, but at least the box only hides its identity behind two padlocks. The kid who died inside Fredbear's mouth doesn't even have a confirmed name. The bite victim's name, the single most important child in this entire franchise, has been nameless for almost a decade. The crying child, the kid whose death in Fredbear's jaws kicks off basically everything. William Afton's younger son, the center of the entire FNAF 4 tragedy. No name, not once, not in any game, not in any official dialogue, nowhere. So naturally, the community decided to solve it themselves. First came Chris Afton, which spread like wildfire through the fandom thanks to a popular animated series. The problem? Completely made up. Zero basis in any game, book, or official tie-in. But people still use it to this day, which is, you know, not ideal. Then came the survival logbook. The book has red ink tally marks scattered across its pages, and fans mapped them onto a foxy grid using page numbers as coordinates. Early decoders got EVAN. Evan Afton became the standard overnight. Case closed, right? Turns out, no. Later reanalysis of the exact same grid proposed the letters actually spell EVAD. Reversed, that's Dave, as in Dave Miller, one of William Afton's known aliases. Suddenly the solved puzzle had two completely different answers depending on how you read the same data, and then the 2023 movie named Mike's dead younger brother Garrett, a totally different name from a technically separate continuity that Scott still had his hands all over. Cool, add that to the list. Here's the thing, without a confirmed name, every theory about whether this kid becomes the vengeful spirit, whether he shares Golden Freddy with Cassidy, whether he's freed in Happiest Day, all of it is built on sand. You can't definitively say what happened to someone when you can't even say who they are. But if you think a missing name is confusing, wait until you try to figure out when Sister Location actually takes place on the timeline. Sister Location's timeline. Sister Location broke the timeline. Not in a fun, oh that's interesting way, in a if you move this one piece, every other game has to rearrange around it way, because Circus Baby's entertainment and rental doesn't look like anything else in the franchise. It's a hyper-modern underground facility with advanced AI, voice-activated elevators, and animatronics that can literally scoop a child into their chest cavity, and yet nobody can agree on when it happens. Here's what we know for sure. Hand Unit states that Circus Baby's entertainment and rentals opened as a direct aftermath of the closing of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. That implies it postdates at least one major Freddy's closure. The hidden numbers 1587, buried in Custom Night, have been decoded to suggest Elizabeth Afton died on January 7th, 1985, positioning her death, the opening of Circus Baby's Pizza World, and the missing children's incident all within the same year. But here's where it gets complicated. The dominant current theory splits the game in two. Elizabeth dies in the mid-1980s, sure, but Sister Location's main gameplay, the week Michael spends underground getting scooped by Enard, that happens decades later, after FNAF 1, but before FNAF 3, somewhere in the 2000s, and the implications of that placement are massive. If Sister Location occurs in the 1980s, William had kidnapping-focused animatronics and underground labs before the missing children's incident, making those murders a side project. If it occurs in the 2000s, it represents a late-stage escalation after years of experimentation. Two completely different portraits of Afton, it also reshapes Michael entirely. The timing determines whether he spends decades as a reanimated corpse shambling toward Pizzeria Simulator, or whether his walking corpse phase is relatively short. That's not a minor detail, that's his entire character arc hinging on one game's uncertain placement. But if you think a sliding timeline is frustrating, wait until you see a minigame where nobody can even agree on who's driving the car. A 30-second hidden arcade game might have accidentally reversed the order of every murder in the entire franchise, and nobody caught it for years. Midnight Motorist buried inside Pizzeria Simulator is a secret minigame called Midnight Motorist. On the surface, it's a top-down racing. Drive a car, avoid traffic. Nothing special. You drive up points, find a bar called a house with a locked purple bedroom, and footprints leading to a mound of dirt that's exactly like a grave. Here's where it gets complicated. The orange man driving the car has a little rabbit antenna on his vehicle, the same color parallels we see with William Afton's purple car in FNAF 2. He comes home furious, finds one of his kids has broken out through a window and run off again. There's a teen on the couch who won't respond, one locked bedroom. Process of elimination gives us the crying child as the runaway, but that mound of dirt outside, that's where everything falls apart. If that mound connects to Fruity Maze, where Susie's dog is shown killed and buried, then the missing children's incident predates both Charlie's murder and the bite of 83. A character in the minigame literally says if you die, they hide your body and never tell anyone. That's rumors of animatronic stuffing circulating in 1983. Those rumors only exist if children have already gone missing. You see the problem. If the MCI came first, then Charlie didn't die first. If Charlie didn't die first, there's no puppet. If there's no puppet, nobody gives life to the MCI kids. The entire causal chain that the community spent years building just collapses. One tiny pixelated minigame, and suddenly the foundational timeline of the franchise might be completely backwards. But if you think a scrambled murder timeline is unsettling, wait until you hear about the entity that's been torturing William Afton for eternity, and why nobody can agree on who it actually is. The Vengeful Spirit Ultimate Custom Night isn't a challenge mode, it's a courtroom. William Afton is strapped to an endless loop of death, ripped apart by every animatronic he ever built, and the judge, a nameless child referred to only as the one you should not have killed. Here's the thing, we don't know who that child is, and the entire moral framework of Five Nights at Freddy's changes depending on the answer. The mainstream theory says it's Cassidy. The survival logbook word search spells out the name. The Princess Quest files in Security Breach originally labeled the princess character Cassidy before someone quietly changed it. Stack that together and you get a clean narrative. A murdered child refuses to let her killer rest. Justice served, case closed. But here's where it gets complicated. A second theory argues the vengeful spirit is the crying child, William's own son. If that's true, this isn't justice anymore. It's tragedy. William's greatest sin isn't killing strangers, but killing his own kid, and his son's rage built this personal hell. Some versions propose Golden Freddy is a fusion of both souls, their combined anger forming something neither could sustain alone. Then there's a third option. The Fazbear Frights books introduce Andrew, a vengeful child who clings to William's corpse. Tales from the Pizzaplex gives us David Murray, an alligator-associated spirit with eerily similar traits. If David is the game universe analog, then Cassidy might not fill this role at all, and buried in UCN is a hidden ending where Old Man Consequences tells the spirit to rest, to let go. The spirit refuses. That refusal is the most important character decision in the franchise. If it's a random victim, that's righteous fury. If it's William's son, that's a broken child who can't forgive his own father. If it's a book character most players have never heard of, then years of theorizing were built on the wrong foundation. The judge's identity changes the verdict, and we still don't know who's sitting on the bench. But if you think the metaphysical questions are unsettling, wait until you see what's lurking in the basement of the Mega Pizzaplex with no explanation whatsoever. Den is tut. The Glamrock Endoskeletons. Here's where FNAF stops being a ghost story and starts asking you what kind of horror franchise you even think this is anymore. In the basement of the Mega Pizzaplex, there's a small army of suitless endoskeletons. No fur, no plastic shell, no friendly face. Just gray metal skeletons with glowing eyes, standing perfectly still in the dark. The moment you look away, they move. Turn back, they freeze. Look away again. Closer. It's the Weeping Angel mechanic, except these things are 8 feet tall and made of titanium. In Ruin, Cassie has to navigate entire sections of these things while deactivating nodes tied to the Pizzaplex security network. At one point, deactivating certain nodes causes a giant Glamrock Endo to spawn on a stage. To progress, Cassie has to climb into its mouth, which is, not ideal. So what are these things? 3 answers exist and none of them agree. The Mimic theory says these endos are puppets. Tales from the Pizzaplex introduces an AI called the Mimic that learns by copying human behavior, goes violently wrong, and is heavily implied to be the entity controlling systems throughout Ruin. The Endos aren't haunted, their hardware being remote piloted by a murderous algorithm that learned how to hunt children by watching someone else do it first. The traditionalist theory says they're haunted. The Pizzaplex sits on top of previous Freddy's locations. There's remnant in the ground. Their behavior isn't code, it's ghosts doing what ghosts have always done in this franchise. And the boring answer, spare parts with malfunctioning security protocols. No souls, no AI conspiracy, just broken robots doing broken robot things. Whichever answer is true fundamentally changes what kind of horror series FNAF is now. If it's the Mimic, we've moved past dead children entirely into AI horror. If it's Remnant, the original ghost story never ended. The franchise has refused to commit either way, and these frozen, staring endoskeletons are the physical embodiment of that refusal. If you think faceless metal skeletons with no explanation are unsettling, wait until you see what someone carved into the walls of this place. The tally marks. This is the mystery that holds every other mystery hostage, and I mean that literally. Somewhere inside the survival logbook, a children's activity book sold for $12. There are red ink tally marks scattered across multiple pages. 5 on page 9, 10 on page 19, 14 on page 31. They don't correspond to shift counts, they don't match any in-universe purpose, and they appear alongside Michael Afton's other annotations like a second conversation happening in the margins. The community took one look and said that's a code. The problem is nobody can agree on what it says. The logbook contains a 5x5 grid of Foxy heads, which fans use as a coordinate system. You take the tally counts, combine them with other numeric cues, derive coordinate pairs, and map those onto the grid to extract letters. Simple enough in theory. In practice, it's caused years of arguments over 4 characters. The original decode produced the letters E, V, A, N, Evan. The crying child's name is Evan. Case closed, everyone go home. But then revisionist decoders argued the true word is E, V, A, D. Reverse it, Dave. Which connects to David Murray, Pizzaplex, means the crying child isn't just his head crushed at a birthday party. He's potentially the entity torturing William Afton for eternity in Ultimate Custom Night. Cool, that's also a thing that happened. And then there's the skeptical camp, say neither's canonical. They argue the tallies might require advanced cipher methods, or that they're part of a broader meta puzzle nobody has correctly assembled yet, which is, you know, not ideal. Here's the thing that makes this genuinely maddening. No in-universe character confirms the tallies encode a name. Scott has never validated any zero ground theory about the Bite the Vengeful Spirit, Golden Freddy's composition. All of it can be challenged at the foundation. You're building skyscraper lore that might not exist. 4 coordinate pairs, 4 letters. The entire lore locked behind them. I don't know what to tell you. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, click the video on the screen now.